Chapter 6, Domestic Life with Dora. Acting upon Agnes' advice, David writes to Dora's aunts and hopes for the best. And David acts according to the suggestion or advice of Agnes. And he writes a letter to Dora's aunt. To whom? To aunt of Dora. At last a reply comes from the two sisters. And he gets a response from these two sisters. And they warmly accept his letter, and they compliment David and inform him that they have given this letter the best consideration, and they have warmly accepted his letter because happiness is the prime cause or major cause of both the parties. Moreover, they are ready to hold some conversation. Conversation means discussion, and they were eager to have discussion on the topic. To this favor, David immediately replies that he will have the honor of waiting, and David responds that he will like to wait. David decides to meet his fellow sisters on the appointed day. One night what happens? He runs to Mr. Peggotty, who had been searching for little Emily all over Europe. But several times he came quite close to his searching, but unfortunately he failed. He also tells David that Emily had written many letters to him, and along with the letter she has also sent money. But David learns that Ham is working hard but is deeply hurt by the whole affair. By this whole matter, by this whole topic, David is deeply hurt. Although he knows that Ham is working hard, Mr. Peggotty then takes leave to continue his journey. Wow! And Mr. Peggotty decides to find his niece Emily until he dies. Finally, David receives a letter from Clarissa and Lavina and Dora's aunts. And who are Clarissa and Lavina? They are Dora's aunt who agree, who decide to meet David so that they can discuss about relationship of David with Dora. David along with traders visits them, and along with traders David meets them, so they can convince Dora's aunt to let David meet Dora again, so they can talk to Dora's aunt for meeting to David again. Finally, after giving David and traders long lecture, and they gave David and traders long lectures, they agreed to let David meet Dora every Sunday. And finally, it was decided that they will meet every Sunday at 3 p.m. at tea. But there was a condition that they cannot meet more than twice a week. And terms and condition was that they were allowed to meet just twice a week. David warmly accepts all these conditions. David takes Agnes to see Dora on a Sunday. And David takes Agnes to meet Dora on a Sunday. He has arranged this visit beforehand. Here Agnes is accepted to join him at tea. And here Agnes was invited to join them at tea. Actually, David finds himself in a flutter of pride and anxiety because he has a desire that Agnes should like Dora. And David wanted that Agnes should like Dora. On the other hand, Dora is afraid of Agnes. But who? Dora is scared of Agnes. But Dora becomes happy when she watches the cheerful and earnest face of Agnes. But she becomes joyful. She becomes happy when she shows the good behavior of Agnes. And Dora openly shows that she is very glad to see Agnes and gives her a kiss on her cheek. Actually, Dora is not sure that there is love for her in Agnes' heart. And Agnes welcomes Dora with a kiss on her cheek. During this era, David starts writing for magazines and publication. He also gave some articles in the magazines which were published, and this started giving earning money to David. David then describes Wakefield's visit to Dr. Strong's house, and he defines the visit to Wakefield at Dr. Strong's home. Uriah accompanies them, and which is not liked by David. However, his joy knows no bound to see that Dora likes Agnes, and David is very pleased. He is very happy to see that Dora likes Agnes. Dora even wonders, and Dora is amazed that although David was brought up with Agnes and she was a good lady, but despite he didn't fall in love with Agnes. Meanwhile, Agnes reassures David that everything at home is the same and she will never marry Uriah. And finally, Agnes decides that she will never marry Uriah. One day, David receives a letter from Mr. Micawber. And one day, David gets a letter from Mr. Micawber. The letter was complaining that Mr. Micawber has become very greedy. Greedy means selfish. And is no longer the jovial. That means cheerful. Okay, and he is no more a cheerful person, and neither he is a loving person to be. David has moved from Buckingham Estate to a pleasant cottage, and David has migrated to a lovely cottage. His aunt and Miss Clarissa have roamed all over London with purpose to buy articles for furniture for Dora. And his aunt and Mrs. Clarissa, who went to London to purchase furniture for David and Dora. In the meantime, Peggotty proves herself useful for them by cleaning the whole house. And Peggotty, the homemaid, cleans the whole house. This incoherent dream is going to become a reality, and their dream to get married and live together was going to be a reality. Okay. Finally, the day of David and Dora's wedding arrives, and finally the day of marriage comes. The memories of that day are still fresh in the mind, and they are fresh. These memories are fresh in David's mind. The beauty of his wife and loving presence of friends of family has made this day unforgettable. And the beautiful Dora and presence of his lovely friends have made this event or memory unforgettable. Finally, David and Dora settled a married life, and they got married and they start living together. According to expectation, Dora faces a lots of problems in handling her domestic life. And despite of this, David and Dora both are happy. Although they face several problems with the maid servants who often used to cheat them, but she tries to manage her family expenses by spending money with prudence and with confidence. But she doesn't have any interest in household chores. But Dora is not interested in domestic works. She does not like to annoy David, and she is very devoted to him. Although she doesn't want David to make angry, and she is devoted to the domestic life. She feels that she must have stayed with Agnes, and she regrets that she might have learned from Agnes before marriage how to maintain a family. On the contrary, despite Dora's constant faults, David as well as Aunt Betsy are happy as long as Dora is happy. And David is still happy, and in spite of these constant failures. One afternoon, David is walking past Stephen's residence, and Miss Darter summons him inside the house. She is extremely rude to him. Who? Miss Darter. She is very annoyed upon David, and she wishes death upon Emily. Then it turns out that she has some important information, and then she reveals that she has some important information about Emily from Latimer. Mr. Peggotty wanders from place to place in search of Emily, but he couldn't find her. One day David meets Mr. Peggotty and inquires him about Emily, and David assures Mr. Peggotty that Emily is alive and she might be in London. Finally, David says that there is only one person who could help them in searching Emily, and finally Mr. Peggotty and David meet Martha and ask her help, and Martha too assures them that she would help them in searching Emily, and she helps them in finding Emily.